All right. Good start of the week for everybody. Just wanted to give a heads up a little bit about why this episode is coming out a little bit late. Trust me, I am trying to be as consistent as possible to get these out. However, I had a little bit of technical malfunction and had to kind of re-record this. Hence, that's the reason why I'm kind of doing this on my own today. Unfortunately, our schedules with Alex didn't really work out fine just because we, like I said, the technical malfunction kind of screwed things over. But one way or another, we're still gonna kick it off. So I'm just gonna go ahead, put on our theme, and then we'll start this.
If you are prone to scary easily, avoiding all the scary horror movies, you'll never watch but are intrigued to. Geo and Alex watch and review, so you don't have to. So you don't have
All right. Well, we are here, and as episode two, as you can see, is Stir of Echoes. It's a 1999 movie starring Kevin Bacon, and it has not only him, but it has Kevin Dunn and even Jennifer Morrison. So if you guys don't know who Jennifer Morrison is, you'll probably recognize her as I always forget her character name from um, Once Upon a Time. But I believe she's Emma Stone in that one. Or maybe I'm thinking Emma Stone, the actual actress. I don't know. Well, anyway, she's Prince Charming and Snow White's daughter who breaks the curse and so on and so forth. So, yeah, she's even in this one. So it's pretty cool to see just how the actors are. I'm going to start off saying this was like one of my number one favorite movies that I saw when I was a kid. Obviously, I have discussed prior that I didn't have much restrictions on what movies I could watch as long as, I wasn't freaking out about it or watching anything that my parents, I guess, would say is bad, but they really didn't have much of a limit, so I guess I was just free game. And so I was 8 when this movie came out, and I remember watching it with my friends, and it like freaked me out, and in a good way. It wasn't like holy cow, but it just kind of brought into a good perspective of just what could be there without you even noticing, right? So going on to the plot of the movie, so we have Kevin Bacon who it plays as Tom. He ends up discovering something in his home. Now let me back up just a little bit. So we kind of start off with his son Jake, played by Zachary David Cope, who is speaking to an inanimate object. We don't know who he's speaking to, but he's speaking to someone, just kind of like giving the day to days and then asking questions, which for a kid, I guess it's normal, right? Because you look at our kids, like I have my kids, and they sometimes are playing by themselves and talking to just like an imaginary friend, right? So you're not thinking anything of it. You're just thinking, oh, the kid's just, conversing with his friend, or maybe he's talking with a dad, or we don't know, right? But then there gets to a point where then he says, I have a very personal question, and then he asks, does it hurt to be dead? And when the camera switches, you see that he's like talking to the wall, and you know something's there, right? So now we get, Kevin and his wife, who's played by Catherine Erb, Maggie, who have been just moved into this new neighborhood in Chicago, a very like tight knit neighborhood. Like they do everything together. So we already see them going to like parties, having block parties, and then even going to like football games together. So like they constantly do a lot of things, which is like a good community building thing. So we head off already him going to this party where his sister-in-law tells him that they talk about hypnosis and being hypnotized, and he doesn't believe it. Of course, it's a lot of things. I honestly didn't believe it either. I remember my high school like our graduation party. We had a hypnotist come and give it. It was like 2 a.m. in the morning. And then like he wanted to choose an audience, and he was like, okay, let's go ahead and he did something to see who would be the ones that could go up. And for me, I didn't really believe it, mainly because a lot of the people that were chosen per se were already part of like the drama club. Like they were doing plays, they were acting, so it wasn't very believable for me. So like I understood a lot on Tom's perspective of seeing like it's not a possibility to do this, right? Like there's no way to being hypnotized. So he has his sister-in-law kind of try it on him, like saying, well, like prove me wrong, right? And obviously, if we've seen any horror film or any uh, film in our lives or even our own personal lives, and whenever we challenge to be proven wrong, it normally occurs that we are wrong, right? So she goes ahead and hypnotizes him, and obviously it works successfully. But while doing that, she ends up adding a line that makes him open a door to basically, in a spiritual sense, get his veil like open. So like his veil is now more clear and he's able to see more thoroughly like through the other side. And that's when things start getting very interesting. He starts noticing, like he finally sees that there's a girl, a ghost, in his house, or in the house that they're renting, but in their house. And he realizes that Jake, his son, has been speaking to this ghost, and since Jake is very well, I guess, versed in his ability to see the dead, Kevin is like tries, asking him how he's able to see or see this ghost again, and how he's able to figure out what it wants or what to do. So they start kind of being together, which isn't bad, right? Father and son bonding. But of course, that leaves the mom out because the mom doesn't have this ability. The mom doesn't see anything. And so they start to unravel the story behind this girl who's living in the house, which then causes now issues in the neighborhood. It's always great to have like a tight neighborhood and be able to have friends around the neighborhood and stuff like that. But when does it cross a line, right? We look at this film, we look at this movie, and we notice that we have a cop and we have two football stars, in high school, and just fathers who are willing to do anything possible for their kids to exceed and get this type of life that they want them to have, especially like football scholarship and the life that comes with that. And they make a mistake. And for anybody, it's not a mistake, right? Like they were looking for something, and then they ended up going too far, which caused someone to lose their life. And instead of doing the right thing, like um, calling the authorities, even though one was already an authority, and saying, "Hey, we got this situation," they hide it, right? Now, in the whole movie, where it doesn't come to show if anybody else knew of this occurrence other than the parent, like both the fathers and the kids, right? But it had passed 6 months, so I'm guessing in their mind they're like, "Phew, we got rid of this. We're good. We're set." But then Tom starts seeing this girl, and then he starts asking questions, which then you know brings back the memory of what just happened 6 months ago, right? Which then causes a lot more issue for Tom. One of the things we discussed with Alex was the craziness it is when 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 it comes to choosing a babysitter. And I know I'm going all and off, pretty crazy, but like one of the things that came up to my mind as I was watching this movie was, again, like I said, this whole neighborhood is like, hey, there's a high school football game. Let's all go and watch this game because our boys are in it. And the funny thing that we said is that, well, since it's a high school game, I don't know why they didn't take Jake. Like they, I bet he would have loved watching football. Uh, but they're like, okay, we need to find him a babysitter. So there's no babysitters around, and Jake mentions, hey, you should, ask for Debbie. And the mom was like, yeah, sure, that's cool. Gets Debbie. Debbie's free. Doesn't even do background checks. Doesn't know nothing, right? And then in comes Debbie,
Out
and
of nowhere, she trusted her.
yeah, out of nowhere is trusted. Like, hi, here's my kid. He's already asleep. We're gone. Like there was no interview. Like, give it. Alex and I, we haven't really had much of a babysitter other than family members. But even as we've discussed the possibility of maybe needing a babysitter that's not a family, it wouldn't be a simple using an app, because I know there's an app now that you can be like, oh, this babysitter looks good. Like I would honestly want to interview, look up, verify, that your kid is gonna be safe. It's, I don't know. It's, I guess it's a parent in me, and maybe it's the Latin in me. I don't know. Like, we can talk race and all you want with parents, but so they just trust them, and then they're like, okay, we're out. But luckily, Tom, with his new ability, kind of saw like a red flag on it. And then while they were going to the game, that's when it kind of, we understand why he was seeing this red flag, was when Debbie kind of asks about, like, who's he talking to. Jake says he's talking to Samantha, which is her sister, and then she freaks out and takes the boy and takes him out of the house and takes him all the way to the train station, which pretty suspicious, man. Like pretty sus for sure. Kevin, obviously Tom notices, runs to go get the kid, and this is where we discussed. And when I say when we discussed, again, like I said, our the first audio that we had got screwed up, but we discussed about how the real system in with missing persons really sucks here in the U.S. It's probably worse in other countries. I honestly haven't looked at the statistics to see those, but I know in the U.S. I know we have a show that's like, what, I think it's like 72 hours or something like that. Like, so like within a certain period of time, if they're not able to get any further clues, suspects, or anything like that, like the case runs cold. So like I said, this girl has been missing for 6 months already, and so the mother and the daughter basically have to put it under their own power to keep searching for for the sister and for the daughter. And because the cops are just gonna be like, well, yeah, we don't have any more leads, we don't have anything else. She ran away, especially like, 1999, back in the days. That was the normal answer. Oh, they just ran away. They just ran away. Like thinking that these kids were just running away, and probably there was a bigger issue. Obviously, in this movie, we see that, right? So I think that's kind of.
In this case, it's a kid. It's not like a teenager. It's a kid, and it's kind of like no one cares. It's just a dad trying to find him, and just because he gets to see this red flags.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. And that's just the kind of crappy thing that comes into it, is that, especially like for Debbie and the mom, right? Their sister and the daughter have been missing for 6 months, and they call the cops constantly, and the cops just don't have any leads, so they basically wash their hands of it, and so they have to like try to figure out these clues, and so I could see why she could kind of got paranoid as to like, when did you talk to my sister, because they've been trying to find her for 6 months, right? But there again, there's a lesson that we learn: don't trust everybody, right? Like, I know we should be a lot more trusting, but make sure you do your due diligence, especially when it comes to babysitters. Um, so the good part about this is that Tom ends up going back to the sister-in-law to figure out, like, one, close the door because he can't really handle it. But he ends up figuring out that he has to do one thing, dig, which he goes freaking insane. Like, he digs the whole backyard like crazy. And then
My
he,
question on that part is why he didn't ask her where to dig if he could see her. But no, he wanted to dig everywhere.
yeah, that's true. That is true. I believe it was because, um, if I remember, the vision that he had or whatever she did with during the hypnotism, it was causing him not to breathe. So he had to quickly look at the screen, and I think he couldn't ask after that. Like, he snapped out of the hypnotism. So I don't think he had that chance, and he still wasn't very versed into calling the girl back again. So yeah, he just kind of assumed and then went to, let's go ahead and just
But what
dig.
about the kid? At this point, he knew that the kid could see her. So why he didn't ask the kid to ask her where to dig?
That's a good point on that
He's
one.
not scared of her. So I know he didn't want to because there was a point where I think the ghost was mad at him because he didn't want to do anything. But still,
Yeah, that's true. And I believe, I think maybe it has to deal with, uh that ghost can only give you clues but not give you the main thing. I don't know. There could be something like that. And that's true.
well, it's a scary movie, so you have to have those times where you're like, what's going on?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So he starts digging, trying to figure out what he has to dig for. And then just starts destroying the house because he feels like he has to start, finally going to the basement, which is exactly where, the girl is. Um, but again, they're renting the house, so if any renters watch this movie, they'd probably be like pissed, like, oh my gosh, I would
They're out.
go crazy.
They're out immediately.
Oh right, yeah, yeah, they're evicted. Like, you know what, we're done. It's so, but one way or another, he ends up discovering the body of the girl, and ends up figuring out what happened. Again, like I said, two young boys got drunk. They're football stars, and they did something very stupid. And I say it very stupid because I have two girls, and I would be flipping pissed if this happened. Like, calm yourselves down, all right? Uh, but they just take it too far, and she ends up dying. And instead of coming clean and doing the time, they go to their dads, and the dads end up just kind of hiding her in the basement because they were just remodeling the home for them to rent it. So now that the story unfolds, now we get that she was killed by these boys. She has hair on her fingers, so they'll be able to pinpoint who it is. One of the boys already shot himself, and they're still hoping that he recovers. And I believe, if I remember, he does, but we don't see him in the end. But it's just kind of mentioned that he kind of is in between. But then you get the cop and the other son who come to kill them because that was a secret that they were trying to hide for 6 months. Luckily, Kevin Dunn, who plays as Frank, comes to the rescue for Maggie and Tom and saves them, and says that, it was a good neighborhood, and that this should have never happened. Which is, it's good. Again, it's like a good thing and a bad thing because it's like they should have done the right thing at the beginning, but it killed him and his son, like, emotionally, to carry the burden of what had happened. So
But I think it's like parenting going wrong in there because, like, first of all, you have to teach your teenager kids that if you have an urge, there's other ways, not just trying to rape someone just because it's, in defense or something like that. Um, you have to teach your kids about sexuality somehow. And then the other thing is, like, you have to come up with the truth, even if it's gonna have bad consequences. You have to pay for those things. So,
Yeah, that's 100% true, and especially how it is nowadays. And growing up as a male in the United States, we get this very big image that we want to experiment, but girls are more reserved, and that's great. I'm not saying that they should not be, but yeah, we should be teaching. Again, teaching the importance of consent, the importance of if finding different ways that will either calm their urges or make them understand why they have the urges, and just not take it too far, because nobody nobody wants to have a family member go through that. And with the hashtag Me Too, we've seen that many people have suffered through these type of assaults. So keep in mind, yeah, that's the type of parenting that make sure you have an open conversation with your boys and with your girls. Like, and make sure that we're teaching them what's right and what's wrong. Uh, Good part about the this movie is it has like a dual, like, good and bad ending, right? So the good part is that the girl, Jennifer Morrison's character Samantha, finally gets her closure. She is able to, like, honestly, in that way, go home. All she wanted to do was go home. She ended up being killed, and now you see her, like, her ghost. She gets her jacket back, and she's able to, like, walk through the street all happy, and the family is able to get closure. They're able to bury her and mourn her death, but they're able to know that it wasn't just her running away, like the cops were saying. Then you get the scary part where now Tom and Maggie and Jake have moved out of that neighborhood and they're going somewhere else. And as they're going through these neighborhoods, you're hearing all these ghosts talking and then saying, Jake, Jake, calling out to him because they know that he hears them, and he just covers his ears. So that comes to the conclusion of, like, does every house have this type of phenomenon? Like, not that someone's been killed in there, but, like, are there ghosts that still reside in these homes, old homes, new homes? I don't know, right? Because areas where there are. So it's very interesting to see that they ended it that way, and to be like, poor Jake doesn't get a break, and probably Tom wouldn't either. But he probably, since he's an adult, he has more of a control. But as a kid, he's very vulnerable to all the things. But that, yeah, it's a highly recommended movie for me. I really enjoyed this movie, mainly just because it keeps you on your foot as into what is going on. And if you've never watched it, it will keep you trying to guess what it is, unless you're like a really good guesser, because Alex is. Alex hates, like we've discussed before, she hates these horror films, but man, does she guess it good. We're just watching it, and she's like, "Oh, this is what happened," and I'm like, "Wait till the movie ends," like, wait. So she can guess it good. So if you're one of those, you'll probably guess it really quick. And if you're listening to this, well, I already told you, so you no guessing, right? You already know. But the cool part is that it really keeps you on your feet, and it kind of gives you that conversation of just like exactly um, what are good morals in the community and what you should do, right? And how our system should actually really improve, because there, going to Walmart the other day, man, I saw so many posters of missing kids and missing people, and I'm just wondering, like, man, if we've been having this issue for years, decades almost, and yet there's the system's still the same after a certain period of time. If there's nothing, it's just hoping they come back. And I think that's a terrible that's a terrible thing to do. And well, I just hope we can improve on that one. But go and grab your friends. Recommend to rent this if you want. Voodoo.
just be careful. There's some nudity if you're not into it. Just fast forward.
Yes, that is true. There is a partial nudity. And I'll just briefly explain that. They're just laying in bed. They're about to get freaky, and as they're getting freaky, he starts having visions of Samantha's like kind of like death, like these new visions of her unable to breathe, her breaking her nail, and then he kind of like snaps out of it, and they stop, stop doing what they were doing, and he just kind of walks away and kind of gets his mind into like what did I just see in my, what were these visions in my head. But yes, there is some brief nudity, so if you want to fast forward it, that's what happens during that time. But other than that, it's a very good movie to watch. Other than that, well, thank you guys for listening. You guys stay tuned. For next week, we're going to be starting our Christmas specials, which means all month of December will be Christmas horror films. So let us get into the holly jolly spirit and horror. And you guys have a wonderful week.
If you are prone to scare easily, avoiding all the scary horror movies, you'll never watch but are intrigued to. Geo and Alex watch and review, so you don't have to. So you